Hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host, and today we're commemorating 10 years of this show, 10 years of me being on the radio and doing podcasts. You might even call it a radio podcast of the Mike Seibert variety. I don't know. But on August 10th, 2015, I hosted my first live solo radio show playing today's rock on 89.9 KGRG FM out of Green River College in Auburn, Washington. Go Gators. And for the longest time, I had considered that date, August 10th and 2015, to be the anniversary of this show. But as I've discovered, that's not entirely accurate. The name of the show is Mike Seibert Radio Podcast, right? And that, well, I guess the live radio show portion of it, the KGRG live radio show, is really only a part of that history. And as we get further and further away, it becomes a smaller and smaller part of that history to the point where it's almost barely a footnote at this point. I mean, the show's been going on for 10 years, or I've been doing this for 10 years now, and really only the first 2 years of it is connected to KGRG, even though I would say that the specter, the spirit of KGRG kind of still lives in the shows that I do. I bring it up every now and again. It is a foundational, important time of my life. Actually, that entire era, when as an adult person, I chose to go back to community college and discovered a passion I didn't even know I had in radio broadcasting, got bit by the bug, and 10 years later, I'm still here. But like those actual shows become further and further away. Now, over the years, I have done a number of retrospective episodes, looking back, telling stories, sometimes even playing clips, but it's always been through the lens of observing the anniversary of the live show on KGRG FM. But today, I want to talk to you about the time before the live radio show. This podcast, this show, Mike Seibert Radio or Mike Seibert Radio Podcast, MSRP, started as a podcast. And after 2 years as a live radio show where I published those recordings of that live radio show, it went back to being a podcast and kind of developed into the show that you're more familiar with today. I had been wrestling for a while with what I wanted to do for this anniversary and what I wanted to do for this anniversary episode. I kicked around a handful of ideas, lost track of time for a while, and the idea didn't even really click with me until just last week when I was actually going through my podcast feed and back catalog. And as I was going through that, I was hoping that something would knock loose and that I would find some kind of inspiration there. But that's when I noticed something I hadn't realized. Well, actually a couple things. First of all, I had lost track of this. My podcast feed on Spotify and Apple only goes back 300 episodes. I think I can modify that. I know other podcasts have like their full catalog or go more than 300 episodes or whatever. But I think when I set up on my current hosting platform, Captivate, there was a note there that says Apple and Spotify recommend 300 episodes. So that's just the box that I checked. But regardless, 300 episodes only takes you back to 2018 and to approximately episode 145. And that's firmly in the current era that we're in now, the Mike Seibert Radio MSRP era, and far and away from the KGRG era. So if you listen on Apple or Spotify, you can't even listen to those old radio shows, those old live radio shows, because they've all since rolled off some, 45 episodes, 100 episodes? 45. Yeah, 45, give or take. Well, no, you can only go to episode 145, and the KGRG era goes to about episode 103. Never mind, numbering legislation, that doesn't matter. The point being is that I don't specifically have a problem with that, because it's okay to move forward and for those old episodes to roll off, because, I mean, again, they're 10 years old at this point. And even if you can't access them, I can still see those shows in the back catalog and in my hosting feed. However, though, as I was digging even further, the other thing I noticed, more importantly, is that when I went all the way back to the beginning of the feed, I realized that back catalog, that archive is actually kind of incomplete. I've moved the show around a few different times to a couple different hosting platforms. So what I did for this project, I went all the way back to the original source material where I first started posting my shows on SoundCloud. And basically the only reason I move off of SoundCloud is because basically I outgrew it, and the features I was looking for, I was looking for something more robust for a podcast than what SoundCloud could offer. But while I was there on SoundCloud, I discovered that there's actually a sizable chunk of the early archive that simply didn't carry over to the hosting platforms, and that it's been years that it's taken me to notice that. Like, there's a good chunk. I think I counted it up, and it's maybe like 45 episodes, including like podcasts and various other files that I put on there. But I remember a number of years ago, I was asked by friends about going back and starting with episode 1 to listen to the show. Hey, Mike, I like you. I like your show. I'd like to go all the way back to the beginning. But to do that, I basically said that there really wasn't actually an episode number 1, because the show started off as a live radio show where I'm basically just talking about the music and stuff happening on campus. It wasn't formatted as a show. I was just a live DJ doing live DJ stuff. It wasn't intended to be an episode 1 or an episode anything, or even really a podcast. It was just me doing live radio as a college DJ. But as it would turn out, as I investigated and thought about things, and, I've said before that memories are kind of like muscles, and that if you don't use them, they kind of stop working, or they get weak, or they get soft, or they dissipate, or they atrophy. And that was kind of the case here, because as it would turn out that the perspective of there not being a true episode number 1 of Mike Seibert Radio was never actually true. And I didn't realize that until I went thumbing through old episodes like so much vintage vinyl. In July of 2015, I started taking radio classes at Green River College. Now, for this particular telling of the story, I'll skip over the part where I'd already been working on a IT degree at the college, and that I discovered during my last quarter of classes that the school had a radio station, and that then I enrolled in radio classes for summer session. But you know all that already. I took 2 parallel classes at the time in the summer of 2015. One of the classes had an emphasis on live radio presentation on 89.9 KGRG FM, and the other class focused on podcasting as well as voice tracking. Now, this would be foundational stuff for me, as I was learning different aspects of the same industry at the same time. Part of my coursework for KGRG FM was preparing and reading live news reports over the air, and at the same time, I was learning how to record, edit, and publish stories in podcast format. So those two skill sets would kind of eventually converge as I learned how to multitask and repurpose the same material for different presentations. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. This podcast class I've talked about before was taught by Charlie Harger. And if you are from the Seattle area, you'll know Charlie currently as the host of Seattle's Morning News on Cairo News Radio. And Charlie would go on to be a great mentor to me, eventually helping me get my foot in the door at Como News Radio, which would lead to my job in professional radio that I still enjoy today. But again, you know that story already. For this podcasting class, though, we were assigned by Charlie with creating a podcast, setting up a profile on SoundCloud and then publishing episodes. I don't remember if part of the assignment was to create it as an overarching podcast with episode numbers. I just know that that's what I ended up doing. I don't know if that was part of the assignment or if that's just what I wanted to do. But during that summer session, we published 3 episodes. The first one being a list ranking show, the second being an opinion show, and the last one being a news story podcast. And that's what I am going to play for you today. I am going to play these episodes for you here now today because, well, you can't find them on the Mike Seibert Radio podcast feed. Now, if you can find my SoundCloud page, it's now opened back up. Basically, I paid Mr. SoundCloud to unlock the archive, and now all of that early work is available publicly, probably for like the next month or so until I stop paying again, because I'm going to download all these lost episodes and do something with them at some other point. But that's neither here nor there for today. So what we're going to do, though, for now, to commemorate 10 years of Mike Seibert Radio, to celebrate and observe that anniversary, I'm going to play for you, originally published on July 23rd, 2015. Here is my first published podcast. This is episode number 1 of Mike Seibert Radio.
Welcome to Get Off My Lawn, a podcast for analog geeks living in a digital world. I'm your host, Old Man Mike. So one of the things about me is that I still buy CDs. I still buy DVDs and Blu-rays. So when it's time for me to pick a movie on movie night, I go to my massive bookcases in my living room that are full of physical media. I've got hundreds of DVDs. I've got dozens of Blu-rays. I've even got a couple shelves full of old VHSs, and I may even have a laser disc or two just sitting on the shelf there, for display purposes. I don't have anything to play them on, but they just look cool. And in case you were wondering, a laser disc is basically the size of a vinyl record that played movies. So anyway, for me to find a movie to watch, I have to kind of do that lazy video store browse. My head tilted, my eyes kind of skimming across the shelves, looking at all the different titles on the spines of these DVDs, waiting for a title to pop. And one of those titles that caught my eye was The Trial of the Incredible Hulk. Now, this movie features not just the Incredible Hulk, but also Daredevil and Thor. Sounds awesome, right? It's not. You kids today and your Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have no idea what we as long-suffering comic book fans had to endure before we get to the what I really feel like is a golden age of superhero movies. It's been a long time coming, and that's really what I want to talk about today. With Ant-Man being out in theaters, it makes me realize how truly limitless the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. Nobody was clamoring for an Ant-Man movie, but yet people are going to it. So to honor the occasion, here's a list of my top 5 favorite movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So kicking things off at number 5 is Thor, for no other reason than for Chris Hemsworth's arms and his profound toplessness. That, and Tom Hiddleston's Loki, is the Marvel gateway drug for teenage girls everywhere. But seriously, it's a great fish-out-of-water story and is surprisingly fun. Speaking of fun, that leads me to number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie earns a spot on the list for its soundtrack for nothing else. But what makes this movie special to me is that it shouldn't exist. You know, if 20 years ago you would have told me that not only would there be a Marvel Cinematic Universe that's a thing, but there would also be a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I would have slapped the taste right out of your mouth. But the movie that comic book geeks everywhere dared to hope for is number 3 on my list, and that's Marvel's The Avengers. Everything built up to this, the biggest superhero epic ever. I love this movie, and every time I watch it, the hair on my arm stands up. There's this scene where the camera is sweeping around all of the gathered heroes, and they're working together, and they're all from different movies, but now they're working together as a team. It's just awesome. But my number 2 movie, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, is a better movie. It's a crackling 1970s spy thriller cleverly disguised as a superhero movie, and I especially love how they handle Captain America as a character. He's so inherently good and earnest, but it's never corny, like when he tells Black Widow to get her feet off of the dashboard of a truck that they had just stolen. He's believably old-fashioned without being silly. The heart of the Marvel Universe is its characters, flaws and all, which brings us to my favorite Marvel movie, Iron Man. Selfish, eccentric, and kind of a jerk. We had never seen a superhero like Robert Downey Jr. before. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is built on the shoulders of that performance, and with Samuel L. Jackson's surprise post-credits cameo, we will never leave the theater until the house lights come up ever again. So there you have it. My favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. If you think I'm out of my mind, hit me up on the comments below and throw me a follow while you're at it. So with that, I'm out of time. This is Old Man Mike signing off, but don't despair, I vow to return. And until that day, stay cranky.
Oh man, I had completely forgotten almost everything about that podcast. I forgot about the whole get off my lawn, Old Man Mike gimmick. I mean, that would actually end up being part of my persona early on when I was at KGRG. Basically kind of playing off the perspective that I was that much older than most of the other students at the radio station. You know, I've talked about the mix of my classmates before. You know, basically it ranges from running start kids to college age folks or college appropriate age folks to folks my age and beyond. But yeah, I was one of only a couple folks that were I would say over 30 at that time. I mean, because criminy, I was 35 while I was there, give or take. Well, I mean, shit, I'm 46 now, so I guess that would make me 36. Anyway, mathematical legislation aside. But a couple things, a little bit of trivia about that first podcast. The song that plays as the intro is a tune called Whisper in Time by Bad Religion. It's off their New America album, which fans don't like. I like the album just fine. But I thought that the idea, the gimmick of it being kind of like a nostalgia based show, like that whole, like, analog geeks living in a digital world. I'd forgotten all about that. So anyway, so that song just kind of seemed in fitting with that theme. And I gotta be honest, I'm actually kind of surprised by how relatively okay the production quality is in that recording. And it's also interesting that while, I mean, for my ear, that recording sounds younger. I mean, I obviously sound younger, but I am surprised that I still use a lot of the same word choice, a lot of like the same phrasing. And really, honestly, even some of my takes aren't all that different from today. Plus, I got a chuckle at the fact that I actually got to use the phrase "slap the taste out your mouth" in a classroom setting. Because again, this is homework. This is all for class and stuff. But man, that that ending though, you can tell that like I'm starting to get the beginnings of getting my footing for kind of signing off. But goodness gracious, that stay cranky stuff, that stay cranky sign off, that's just pure cringe. Like I shudder when I hear it. It's not my favorite. We're obviously still a long way away from making good choices, but still overall, for a first episode, not too shabby, not too bad if I don't say so myself. Now, for my second podcast episode, I had to give an opinion, and I don't recall the parameters of the assignment. I mean, I wonder if I've got like a box of files at home from old school stuff, and I wonder if there's like a syllabus or like instructions, or I would love to be able to dig that stuff someday if I still have it. But so anyway, I don't know what the parameters were, but the structure of the episodes are all based on what Charlie was teaching us in the class. So like the podcast has to hit certain beats for grading purposes. And what I also enjoy about listening to like that first episode is like, I'm sure I'm hitting structure points, but it's so seamless that it doesn't stand out that that's what it's doing. And that's what all good podcasts should do. Like podcasts should have a format, and to the audience, it should be invisible to you, impossible for you to see that, like, you're reading off of like a bullet point skeletal structure, that kind of thing. But anyway, in this episode, which was published on August 5th, 2015, this is also important and foundational in that it would mark the very first time I would get to talk about the movie that would ultimately define my entire online personality.
Hey, you dang woodchucks! Quit chucking my wood!
Get off my lawn.
Welcome back for another thrillingly cantankerous episode of Get Off My Lawn, the podcast for analog geeks living in a digital world. I'm your host, Old Man Mike. So something I've had to adjust to as I get older is that geek culture has basically overrun pop culture. That blurry line separating the two has faded so much that the two are now inseparably intertwined. Things that were once relegated to the basement of pop culture, like comic books and toys, are now celebrated and emblazoned across your movie and TV screens and are largely accepted by the majority of the audience. And therein lies the problem. Fans are ruled by their passion and not only the harshest critics, but are also stingy when it comes to what they want to share. Certain stories are so precious to us that we bristle when somebody dares to make an adaptation that appeals to, well, you. Which brings me to the Transformers. Having grown up with the toys, my connection to these stories and characters is deeply personal, and the current slate of Michael Bay movies offends me just as deeply. They are dreadful, pandering, and heartbreakingly terrible. I can't stand them. But what I didn't understand until recently is that these movies are not even for me, the superfan. They're for the average moviegoer, and the audience has spoken with their wallets. The Transformers film series is currently the 9th highest grossing film series and the 4th highest growing when averaged to gross per film, behind Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Pirates of the Caribbean. You are watching these movies. So I'd like to advocate for a better alternative for fans. That being 1986's animated Transformers the movie. It's the meter stick I measured the Michael Bay movies against, and I've been disappointed every time. I love this movie completely and without irony, much like those that put Star Trek the slow motion picture high on their list of favorites. See, favorite doesn't always equate to good, and that's the case here. Heavily influenced by Star Wars, Transformers the movie took the goofy Saturday morning cartoon and made it into a rock and roll science fiction space opera. Imagine if while the rebels were attacking the Death Star at the end of Star Wars, it suddenly changed into a massive robot and started swatting away X-Wing fighters. That's the scope of this movie. Rated PG, it was the first movie of its kind to aim above its target audience. It was also the first animated movie that I'm aware of to advertise celebrity voice casting, including Leonard Nimoy, Robert Stack, and even Orson Welles in his final performance. And the intensity of the violence was like nothing we had seen in an American cartoon movie before. There's an entire generation of us that are still traumatized to this day by the death of Optimus Prime. The music is also a huge component of Transformers the movie's lasting legacy. The soundtrack was full of hair metal prog rock anthems on top of a rapid synthesizer-heavy score to keep things moving. Hey, it was the 80s. A random piece of trivia, that song that Mark Wahlberg sings in Boogie Nights, The Touch, was actually written for Transformers the movie. It's really a shame that there wasn't some kind of nod to it in the last live-action movie. Such a wasted opportunity. Transformers the movie currently holds a 53% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and while that's not quite fresh, I think that's a fair rating, and is more than 3 times that of Age of Extinction, the last movie, which is also the amount of times you can watch Transformers the movie within Age of Extinction's bloated running time. Clocking in at a brisk 86 minutes, with credits, there's no way that you can say it's too long. So if you are sick and tired of being punched in the face by gratuitous product placement, automotive fetish porn, and learning way too much about Texas age of consent laws, but like the concept of the Transformers, then do yourself a favor and check out Transformers the movie. If you think I'm out of my mind, hit me up on the comments below and throw me a follow while you're at it. This is Old Man Mike signing off for now, but I will return. And until that day, stay cranky.
Did you hear me? I said get off my lawn now.
I mean, holy smokes. That's that's actually still really good. Again, I'm totally surprised. Like, I haven't listened to these shows in almost 10 years. And there is so much there that I had forgotten about. Like again, like the what was it? Like automotive fetish porn. That's not a phrase I even knew I had in me back then. Like where's that even come from? And they let me put that in a podcast that I published and turned in for classwork. Shout out to community college, I guess. But it is interesting that it still wouldn't be another few years after that before I really connected with the larger Transformers fandom, and actually, quite honestly, it would be a number of years before I would accept the live action movies, the Michael Bay movies, and truly understand their influence and importance to other fans. I mean, you can hear my disdain in that, and I don't know that I feel that way anymore. So it's interesting to listen to this as a take. And I wonder if some of that compare and contrast, it was a parameter of the assignment. I don't remember, to talk about something else, to put something else up. But regardless, that, again, solid stuff, if I don't mind saying, and again, foundational. So episode 2 of my podcast, I'm already talking about how important Transformers the movie is to me. And again, as you know, more than most, what that movie means and what it would go on to mean for the future trajectory of the show. And even in KGRG canon, it wouldn't be a whole nother year before it would be kind of incorporated into that canon. But that's a different story for another time. But for now, this final original podcast for this class that I'm going to play for you, this kind of represents where things really start coming together. And in this episode, I share the surprisingly upsetting tale of the adorable hitchhiking robot that just wasn't Philly tough.
Hey, you dang woodchucks! Quit chucking my wood!
Get off my lawn.
Welcome back for another electrifyingly belligerent episode of Get Off My Lawn, the podcast for analog geeks living in a digital world. I am your host, Old Man Mike. So I came across a cool story recently, and I wish it had a happier ending, but I still think this story is really neat, and it's definitely captured my imagination. So as you might know, I'm a huge sci-fi guy, and I love fantastical technology. You know, jetpacks, ray guns, spaceships, and of course, robots. And that leads me to the story I'm going to tell you today. It's the tale of an adorable robot's attempt to hitchhike across America.
How's it going?
Hello, I am Hitchbot.
Jump in.
You will have to pick me up.
All right, I'll come get you.
There once was a social experiment and collaborative art project called Hitchbot. It was developed by universities in Toronto to explore our perception of safety and trust. The robot is about the size of a child, roughly a 6-year-old, has a bucket-shaped body with blue pool noodles for arms and legs, wears those rubber boots you see girls wearing all the time now, wellies I think they're called. They basically look like galoshes or rubber rain boots. You know, perfect for summertime.
I gotta say, I like your boots.
Thanks.
It also has yellow rubber gloves with an opposable thumb always extended for hitchhiking, has a transparent cake saver skull, and has 4 LED panels for a face that displays a glowing red smiley face, which occasionally winks and can display text. This is the most adorably Canadian thing ever. And every day, this thing would rely on the kindness of strangers to pick it up and move it around, as the robot can't move by itself. It is equipped with GPS so its movements can be tracked, as well as having a camera to document its adventures. The robot can also carry on limited conversation with its traveling companions thanks to speech recognition software. Last summer, Hitchbot traveled all the way across Canada, coast to coast, in 26 days. But then one day, the robot's delightfully sweet creators decided to send Hitchbot on a trip across the United States. They set the robot on the side of a highway outside of Boston with a sign that simply read, San Francisco or bust. The robot's American journey included a bucket list, which is kind of adorable because it looks like a cute bucket. Anyway, it had destinations to reach before eventually ending up in San Francisco, including Times Square, Mount Rushmore, the Grand Canyon, and even Las Vegas. Thanks to the GPS, Hitchbot can tell where he is and can tell you where he wants to go next.
I can make a cameo appearance in a film when we get to California.
Because of that, Hitchbot made it to Fenway Park to watch a Red Sox game and 3 cities in Massachusetts, and even went out on a fishing boat before making it to New York's Times Square. But like any hitchhiker, Hitchbot was at the mercy of whoever picks it up. And because of that, the robot ended up in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love.
Hitchbot, do you need a seatbelt?
Yes.
Oh my God, what the hell did you hear that? What? It just said I need a seatbelt. It's freaked out. Do you want to ride in the back?
Cool. Oh hey, we're around Philadelphia.
You know that. Hey, would you mind riding in the back, please? Please sit in the back.
Why? So you can insult me again?
What the heck? It's staying here. It's so creepy. It's been talking to us. I don't know. I can't believe we picked up.
I
had to pull over
Philadelphia
because I can't drive with this going on. I can't do it.
I can't believe that. We just picked up a hitchhiking robot. This is so weird.
Until finally, poor Hitchbot was vandalized and damaged beyond repair, and was later found abandoned on the side of the road with its head and arms tore off. Dude, the pictures I saw of the aftermath were legitimately haunting. This is some terrifying stuff. Just like trash on the side of the road. All the electronics were gone, but strangely, the vandals did not make off with its stylish boots. And so, we have learned that we can't have nice things because humans are terrible. Or at least Americans. Maybe Ariana Grande was onto something after all. Who knows? Also, with this act of machine violence, we have either averted the beginning of the robot holocaust, where the machines will rise up and enslave humanity, like you do, or we have just accelerated the clock towards Judgment Day. History will have to decide. So what do you think? Is this another case of ugly Americans being ugly, or is this just a coincidence that Hitchbot could make it all the way across Canada, as well as parts of Germany and the Netherlands, without a scratch, but can't last 2 weeks in America? If you think I'm out of my mind, hit me up on the comments below, and hey, throw me a follow while you're at it. This is Old Man Mike signing off for now, but I will return someday, and until that day, stay cranky.
Did you hear me? I said get off my lawn now.
Man, poor Hitchbot, dude. I tell ya, too sweet, too Canadian to be allowed to live. And again, listening to these episodes, I'm sounding like a broken record, but I had completely forgotten that I had edited in audio clips into the piece. I didn't know that I had those skills at that time. And again, I gotta say, for being 10 years old and for me being 10 years beyond, supposedly, with greater, better tools and more technical prowess and understanding, that podcast, more than most, actually holds up really well. In fact, even more so than some of the early Mike Seibert Radio podcasts that I would do a couple years later. Shoot, it even holds up better than some of the stuff that I did just a few years ago. Like, I forget which episode I was listening to, but it was from, I don't know, like 2023, maybe 2022. And I'm like, golly, like it just, it's interesting when I go back and listen to some of my old stuff, how stiff some of it sounds. Maybe because I was more rigid in my scripting, but yeah, it's interesting. Like this sounds tight and bright, concise. But much like how Transformers the movie would eventually go on to define my personality on this podcast and really kind of in the online space, so also was the case with Hitchbot early on for me at KGRG. I mean, I was obsessed with this story, and this took on so many multiple facets. Like Kevin Smith was talking about it on his podcast, and this whole thing with Hitchbot, this would actually be the first time that I learned that I could do the same story a number of different ways in different places for different purposes. You know, the idea of using all the parts of the buffalo that I still believe in today. I mean, I think of how many times I've told the same stories across multiple podcasts with different people, like about, I don't know, how much Two Mikes, Too Furious content feeds back into Mike Seibert Radio and vice versa. Like even the entire concept of me doing live stream video shows and then ripping the audio from those live stream videos and then turning around and publishing it as audio podcasts. That all comes from this very ethos of, you know, trying to use everything, use all the parts. How can I repurpose this? How can I use this in a different way? How can I tell this story differently? It all kind of comes back to this. And I didn't even realize that till I started thinking about it, you know, retroactively and retrospectively. You know, I think the thing that I didn't quite clue into when I was younger and more less experienced, or actually not, it's not even that. It's just that I hadn't had the time and number of episodes under my belt. Like, I remember doing like a retrospective show like 6 months later, and I'm like, here's a clip show of something I did 6 months ago. You know, that kind of thing. It's like my voice sounds the same, and there's really no difference. So but it's fascinating now that when you get older, time goes faster. It moves faster. And suddenly I look over my shoulder, and now instead of being 6 months or 3 years or 5 years, it's now 10 years. And now I feel like it's more appropriate for me to look all the way back to the beginning here. But again, Hitchbot is where kind of the first time where it all kind of came together. I'd mentioned earlier in the show that giving live news reports was a part of my coursework, classwork as a student, for the live radio show, for the live radio class. So what I did for that week's news, as I was working on that podcast, I did the Hitchbot story. I mean, I had all the copy, I had all the prep, I had all this stuff already put together. So I was in a spot where, you know, I don't remember if it was the same day or not, but it was still very close in proximity. But I also figured that all this material was for a completely different audience. You know, one is a podcast for class, and the other thing was for a live radio show audience. The veteran DJ for KGRG I was working with at the time was a cat named John Clubberton, J Club, as he would go by on the air. And man, that guy was awesome. Terrific on-air persona, great radio voice, nice guy, really eager to help new kids coming in. And he had a really great time with me and doing my news. Like, I mean, I don't know. It was 4 or 5 times, something like that, however long summer session was. But I had a good rapport with this dude, and we had such a great time when I did the news story about the hitchhiking robot who met a sad, violent end in Philly. And unfortunately, that original broadcast was lost to the sands of time. Actually, I don't even know if it's a sands of time thing, because I think if I remember correctly, Club was having such a good time with me that I think he accidentally forgot to record that segment to begin with, because I remember part of it is like, I think you had to record your news and turn it in for air check, for review, for a grade. And like, I don't think it was a big deal, but I think it was like a little bit of a big deal at the time. But however, that's actually okay. There's a silver lining, because J Club had such a great time with me and this Hitchbot story. He actually asked me to return the following week so that I could go deeper into the story. And that's the final piece of vintage audio that I'm going to present for you here today for the celebration of 10 years of Mike Seibert Radio. And, you know, putting this together, a lot of things are just snapping into place, and a lot of things are just kind of coming to me as I go. But this might actually be the most important bit of vintage recording, because it's from a live broadcast and it's a collaborative conversation. The very thing I like to do more than anything else in this medium. You know, I like talking about Transformers the movie and Marvel movies and you know, whatever else. I like putting together these crafted solo shows like what I'm doing now, and I love doing Two Mikes, Too Furious. You know, that's something that's even more carefully crafted and edited and polished. But man, this stuff right here, where we're just live on the air talking about the stuff that we're passionate about, that we find interesting, and enjoying the friendship and camaraderie that you only have when you share a mic with somebody live on the air, figuratively, not literally. You share the airwaves. You know, we had our own recording booths where we're sitting across from each other. But that stuff, man, that's the juice that fills my tank, dude. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with J Club about the legend of Hitchbot.
Yeah. KGRG-FM. My name is John. I'm sitting here with Mike right across from me. There was something that we should have talked about last week that we didn't talk about, and we need to talk about it right now. So last week when Mike did his news, he talked about Hitchbot, who is a traveling... What's the word? I don't even want to go into it. Just take over, Mike. Right, just explain it, man. You know.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a really cool story. I wish it had a happier ending, but it's still pretty cool, and it's definitely captured my imagination. I mean, I've become obsessed with this darn thing over the last week. I did a podcast on it for my Journalism 120 class. Registration is now open, by the way, for fall quarter.
Promotion.
greenriver.edu, just saying. Digital Radio Lab. But I'm a huge sci-fi guy. You know, I'm into Star Wars and Star Trek. I like technology. So anything having to do with robots is my jam. So that's what the story is about. It's basically a adorable robot's attempt to hitchhike across America. So Hitchbot is basically, it's a social experiment and a collaborative art project that was developed in Toronto, Canada at a couple different universities. And basically what it was is it's exploring our perceptions of safety and trust and how we interact with each other, how we interact with strangers. Really adorably Canadian, almost hippy-dippy stuff.
It is really cute.
It is adorable. And I think,
yeah.
And I think that's what's enamored me so much with this story, because basically Hitchbot is about the size of a small child, about roughly 6 years old, has a bucket-shaped body with those blue pool noodles for arms and legs. He's got a he, she. I don't know what gender.
Yeah, what gender is it?
Well, you know what? As some of the stuff I get to, I would actually say it. I think Hitchbot identifies as female, because like I've found a lot of clips of its voice where it's interacting with people, and it's a decidedly female voice, almost a Surrey-like voice. But
you know, you feel like it should be a male, seeing as how traveling and hitchhiking and things like that. You don't advise anybody to hitchhike,
right?
But it's not even really hitchhiking, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You don't tell any woman to go out and hitchhike. I mean, that's just dangerous in itself. It's dangerous for males too, but I mean, at least you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, totally. And as the story will go, we'll find out it was dangerous enough for a Hitchbot as well. But I think the deciding factor is the boots. It wears these rubber boots. They're like wellies or whatever. They basically look like rubber rain boots. I actually see girls wearing these around campus in the summertime. Is
that a new fashion thing? Girls are wearing rain boots?
I don't know. I think it's like a college girl thing or something. I don't know.
Let's not digress here.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it has a transparent acrylic cake saver skull. It's got 4 LED panels. It basically goes all the way around. Has a face that displays glowing red smiley face, which occasionally winks and can display text.
Oh my!
I mean, like I said, this when you think of something that's adorably Canadian that isn't having to do with maple syrup or sliced ham, you think of this thing. I mean, this is so utterly Canadian. But basically what it would do is it would rely on the kindness of strangers to pick it up and move it around because, it just sits there. It's equipped with GPS, so its movements can be tracked. It also has a camera so it can document its adventures. This thing has some speech recognition software, so it could actually carry on limited conversations. So you could say, "Hey, where are you going?" And it'd be like, "I would like to go to San Francisco,"
which is incredible.
Yeah,
people are so used to technology these days that they don't realize how cool that is.
Absolutely, yeah,
it's cool.
We're definitely in this age of taking technology for granted.
Exactly.
But last summer, this thing, this Hitchbot. Because this isn't a new thing. This has been going on for like a year or so. Last summer, it traveled all the way across Canada, coast to coast, in 26 days, doing this same type of social experiment thing.
And this makes me sad because it survived Canada.
Not only did it survive Canada, but it also survived parts of Germany and the Netherlands. It spent like 12 days in Germany and I think like 10 days in the Netherlands, not a scratch on it.
And what happens when it comes to America?
Well, a few things happened. Well, basically what happened first was the adorable Canadians came down to the Boston area, like just outside of Salem, and they set it up on a busy highway with a sign that said San Francisco or bust, and then just left it. So the first people that came across it were, ironically enough, tourists from Germany.
How perfect.
Yeah, I know, right?
How perfect.
Yeah, so they pick this thing up and they're like, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And they talk a little bit, but they basically put this thing out on a fishing boat and went out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So they're, back in Canada, they're looking at the GPS on this thing. It's like, where is this thing going?
And clearly, if the GPS is working, it's not in the water being destroyed.
Correct.
So it's somehow we'll say alive in one form or another in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sitting here smiling. I'm forgetting that I'm actually supposed to talk on the air. I'm just listening to you. I just think this is the coolest thing in the world. Anyways, proceed, man.
No, like I keep saying, this thing has just gripped my imagination. It's just so funny. But so it had a bucket list of destinations it wants to go, because that always cracked me up, because its body is basically like a 5-gallon bucket. It has a bucket list. It wanted to go to Times Square, Mount Rushmore, Grand Canyon, all the cool stuff. And with its GPS, not only we talked about tracking, but it also knows where it's at. It's like, so when I go to San Francisco, I can be in the movies. I am now in Boston. Take me to the Red Sox game. So it made it to Fenway Park. And actually started the wave at a Red Sox game.
There has to be a video of this.
Yeah, there is.
I have to see this.
Yeah, it is hilarious. Spent a handful of time in Massachusetts. We already talked about it. Went out on a fishing boat.
and then ended up in New York's Times Square. Like, it's in front of Radio City Music Hall. It's in the middle of Times Square.
So she
Sure.
made her way around America a little bit.
The Northeast. Well, see, and that's the thing. So we talk about how well it survived. This is East Coast, man. It's going through Boston. It's going through New York. And, for all of us here in the greater Seattle area, we're a different people, I would think.
Very much so.
And yeah, so it's a different vibe over there. So you would think in those two areas of the country, it would encounter some difficulties and really didn't have any problems. The only problem it really ran into is that it wasn't going, it wasn't completing its journey. It was just basically going around in the greater Boston area.
She wants to go to San Francisco.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. But like any other hitchhiker, Hitchbot was at the mercy of whoever picks it up. And because of that, it ended up in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Oh. Now, the last known documented where we knew this thing was a couple of vloggers had picked Hitchbot up. And I don't know anything about these guys. I don't know their names or anything like that. But basically, they're, pranksters and clowns and doing all kinds of stuff. But the audio is actually pretty funny because, like, it starts off innocently enough. They're like, Hitchbot, do you need a seatbelt? Yes, I need a seatbelt. Do you want to sit in the back? Yes, I want to sit in the back. And as they're driving along, Hitchbot continues to remind them where he this whole gender thing is actually kind of funny.
We should almost say it.
You know what? It really is, because it's not a person.
It's not going to reproduce.
No, especially not now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, we are in Philadelphia. And you could see on the video, this guy is just, his sanity is slowly unraveling. He's like, I need to pull off the side of the road. I can't handle this. But these guys, I don't want to throw unnecessary shade, because these guys are not the perpetrators. Basically, in their video, they basically leave it on the side of the bench. In fact, they even tried to give him a cab ride, too. Oh. They were like, well, Hitchbot, where do you want to go? I would like to go to Washington, D.C. So they're like, well, how much is it to take this thing to Washington, D.C.? Cab driver comes up, $300. Yeah. Sorry, buddy, you're on your own. We're going to peace out. Yeah. That's our video for this week. And that's where he stayed. I did it again. The whole he.
It's very difficult. We'll just say he.
Sure.
Let's just say
so cut to the next morning, and unfortunately, poor Hitchbot was vandalized and damaged beyond repair, and was later found abandoned on the side of the road with its head and arms tore off. Now, I showed you the pictures of this after we got done with news last week, and it was legitimately haunting. I actually found myself a little upset because
it's sad.
Yeah, well, and it's just discarded like trash. It's like it's little adorable pool noodle arms, just cast off to the side.
As a person who lives in this country, it sucks that we had to be the country that, and of course, it had just had to be America where that happened. And whoever that person was who did that, if they ever hear this, you are a terrible human being. You are an awful, and I'm not saying that Mike agrees with me. I'm just speaking for myself. You are a bad person. Why would you do that?
You know what? I mean, my stance is we've learned that we can't have nice things because humans are terrible. But it's funny because like all the electronics were gone, but strangely, the vandals did not take those stylish boots. Those little rubber boots were still there. A couple different takeaways here, with this act of machine violence. We've either averted the beginning of the robot holocaust, where the machines will rise up and enslave humanity, like you do.
Revenge.
Exactly. We've accelerated the clock towards Judgment Day. I mean, this is like Terminator-like future here. So we've either prevented it, or we've pissed it off to where, we're going to be Skynetting it all up and down the joint.
We as humanity are going to be held responsible for the demise of this poor Hitchbot.
Oh, totally. Now, what's interesting is like in in a previous place on my podcast, I asked, is this another case of ugly Americans being ugly, or is it just a coincidence that this adorable Hitchbot can make it across Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands without a scratch, but can't last 2 weeks in America? You know, and I caught a little bit of flack in class today. They're like, Mike, are you secretly Canadian? No, I'm as American as all get out. But I think, unfortunately, this is really telling of us as a society.
So let's not move on, but let's ask this: are they going to make another one?
Well,
will Hitchbot return?
It's unknown at this time. Basically, what happened is over the weekend, this story went viral. It was everywhere. So like when Hitchbot first started, when it was first unleashed in the US, it had like 32,000 Twitter followers. It's now up to like 68,000. And, you know, you look all over social media and there's just been this outpouring of support and well-wishing, and even a technology company out of Philadelphia has offered to rebuild the robot. The creators, though, they're still so beside themselves that they're not sure what they want to do.
Right.
Now, a couple things have happened since we talked last week. A couple of developments. First, there was a video that surfaced that was supposedly surveillance footage of somebody destroying the robot. That was totally a hoax.
Oh,
yeah, it's because I saw that just shortly before we went on for the news. Did investigation afterward, and yeah, it's a total hoax.
You take this very serious.
I really do.
And I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah, it speaks to me. I like our eventual robot masters.
I think he's cool.
Yeah. And even then, that wasn't completely the end of Hitchbot's escape from America. A fan actually drove from Rhode Island to Philadelphia to pick up these pieces, and had it for what was later revealed just recently. He had this thing for like a week, because this happened like a week or so ago, and then basically nobody knew where the remains were.
So the GPS clearly.
Oh yeah, all the
destroyed.
all the electronics were totally wasted. So basically, all that was recovered was the bucket, the detached arms, and the legs, which were still attached. But yeah, so this guy reaches out to the people up in Toronto. He's like, "Hey, I've got this. What do you want me to do?" And basically they came up with this plan where it's like, we're not going to share it with the media. We're not going to, share that you have it, hang on to it, and ship it back to us. Well, within that, are you familiar with Kevin Smith at all? His movies like Mallrats, Clerks, anything like that?
I want to say yes, but no.
Okay. No worries. So he was, it's the 20th anniversary of Mallrats this year, and they were having a screening in New Jersey. And in my research, I found out that he's been talking about Hitchbot also, even going back to a year ago when it was going across Canada. Again, I was dialed into
Hitchbot
this.
supporter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So as part of this event, this Rhode Island guy arranges it to where he goes out to this event, and a couple more pictures surfaced on social media. Basically, the dude has this trunk open, and there's the dude, and there's Kevin Smith, and there's what's left of Hitchbot, and they kind of glued his arms back on, so it's not so bad.
So it's not horrific to look at?
No, it's still a little macabre given that it has no head, but but at least the arms are back in place to make it a little less awkward. But to kind of put a button on it, the remains have officially made their way back to I forget which university. I don't have it in front of me, but it's made it back home to Toronto, to where, again, who knows what's going to happen.
And then America will never get a hold of Hitchbot again.
Oh, gosh, no. But here's the thing, you and I were talking about this off mic, as well as in class. What would it have been like had Hitchbot started here, like say in Seattle or even a more progressive area of California?
And that's what I was going to say, was what if they should do it and then put him here?
See, that would be awesome. I mean, I'd be all over that.
I would love to. I would help.
Mm-hmm.
We should maybe start a petition or something.
Oh, there we go. Maybe like a Kickstarter or something. Yeah, save Hitchbot.
We could do that. Hashtag save Hitchbot.
Oh, there you go.
We could do it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we should probably wrap up.
With
this conversation. But follow Hitchbot on Instagram. Follow Hitchbot on Twitter.
Yep.
Research Hitchbot. Look him up. Fascinating character. And Mike, if you ever need to know anything, Mike is all over social media, and he knows everything about Hitchbot.
So it seems I become a expert kind of on accident.
Hitchbot master.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
This has been a blast, man. We're going to go on the air again soon.
Oh, heck yeah.
And
we got to do this again.
And we'll keep updating the listeners on Hitchbot.
Heck yeah.
We're going to any new news will be broadcasted to you Tuesdays from 3 till 7. Or whenever Mike's on the air.
There
he's on
it
the
is.
air all the time.
Oh, and incidentally, I have breaking news on that. When I wrapped up my news, I misspoke. I am on from 10 to midnight. I may have said I was on from 10 to 2.
So correction, Monday nights from 10 to 12.
You got it.
Listen to Mike.
Yep.
253-833-5004.
What's also funny, I didn't realize this until after I had already started looking into things for this episode and getting SoundCloud out of Hawk and starting to download these old episodes and revisiting them. But I realized that I published that audio on August 12th, 2015. And then I had completely forgotten that was so recently after my first solo DJ shift on KGRG-FM on Monday night, August 10th, 2015. Wild. So in a way, without playing like that first air break like I've done in the past, this still evokes that same time period that I've always used for all these years for celebrating the anniversary. It's just funny the wild coincidence. But now from there, the rest of the story you already know, right? I've talked about it so many times, but every podcast is somebody's first podcast. And if you made it this far, here's a brief summary of what happened later. So summer 2015, I finished that first quarter's worth of broadcasting classes, and now I'm welcomed to be a part of the KGRG FM staff. I held that Monday night shift, even as I continued to take classes into fall quarter and beyond. I held that shift for 2 years afterwards, where over the course of those 2 years, I welcomed a diverse variety of co-hosts, interns, sidekicks, trainees, and friends, and that would help the show grow and develop and undergo several name changes, change of vibe, change of focus, until finally in August of 2017, about a month after I had left the show to work full-time at my professional radio job, a job at the radio station I still work at today for my day job. Happy National Radio Day, by the way. I happen to be recording this on August 20th, which is National Radio Day. And that's of significance because that is when the first commercial radio station began broadcasting on August 20th in 1920. So happy National Radio Day. Already gone by the time you're listening to this, but I also thought it was weirdly fitting and entirely coincidental that I'm recording this on National Radio Day. Anyway, so I left the show to work full-time at my professional job at the radio station I work at today for my day job. Our show won Specialty Show of the Year as voted by our peers, which is a perfect cap-off to a fun era of live radio, of the KGRG era. However, almost immediately afterward, in August of 2017, I decided to continue the show, this time returning to the original roots as a recorded podcast. And after almost 500 episodes and as many spin-offs and side projects, here we are, celebrating 10 years of the Mike Seibert Radio Podcast. I want to thank you so much for being along with me for this journey. I appreciate the support more than I can ever express. I keep saying in so many different contexts, as long as you want to keep hearing it, I'll keep doing it. And I don't know, maybe instead of calling it 10 years of Mike Seibert Radio, maybe I should call it the first 10 years of the Mike Seibert Radio Podcast, because I don't have any immediate plans. And ironically enough, I think now that Two Mikes, Too Furious is in a state of somewhat finished, we're about ready to record our second session with Marty Eisenberg. So Two Mikes, Too Furious will continue, and we'll see what is more than meets the Eisenberg as we continue to open the Eisenberg files and continue our deep dive into Transformers Animated. But that's not going to dominate nearly as much of my time going forward as it has for the past couple years. So I will be interested to see what I do with Mike Seibert Radio on the other side of that. But that is for us to discover in the future. But again, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you for being with me and for listening and for hanging out with me and making me a part of your commute, or as part of your very long walks, or however you keep me with you and keep me as a part of your day. I appreciate it more than I can ever express. And with that, we'll wrap it up for this celebration of 10 years of Mike Seibert Radio, and that'll wrap things up for this episode. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it so you never miss an episode. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio, and until next time, tell all or one, stay cranky and make good choices. Mike Seibert Radio is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Our original theme song is written and performed by Lucia Fasano. Get her music on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and check out her Instagram at Lucia_Fasano. Our closing theme is A Nice Place to Visit by These Young Fools, used with permission from Michael Geissler. Check out Michael's website, bytourmusic.com, for more music like it. Special thanks to Andy Lita for our logos and graphic design. He is at GoGoAndyRobo. Become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group. And you can follow me on social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And check out my YouTube channel for even more videos, and subscribe so you never miss a show and don't miss Two Mikes, Too Furious animated Transformers. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me an email, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.